Hello, I'm Caroline Siegel, and today I will be presenting on billionaires. This topic is noteworthy for a number of reasons. One should keep in mind that in today's world, money is a key factor in power, so billionaires have unparalleled access to power, while some have practically none. I will be mostly looking at the United States for this. Abstraction is the process of turning real-world entities and phenomena into data. In this project, I abstracted real people, billionaires, into a list of data reports on them, with a number of properties relevant to my project. Citizenship is a string value that demonstrates the billionaire's legal belonging to a particular country. Year is an integer value that represents the time in which the data was collected. Worth in billions is a float value that represents the billionaire's net worth at the time, which means their wealth after debts were subtracted. Name is a string that represents the name of the billionaire and was used to count the amount of billionaires of certain demographics for some. The structure of the data is a list of dictionaries with more dictionaries inside many of those. The citizenship key can be found within the location dictionary. The worth in billions key can be found within wealth. Year and name were also used in the dataset. The dataset has a number of limitations. For one, the dataset did not include all the information I needed for my project, including the population of certain countries, the percent of men in the US population, and the average wealth and wealth of the lowest quintile of Americans, so I needed to get them from an outside source. Also, the dataset only included information from the years 1996, 2001, and 2014, so it could have been useful to have more years of data and more current data. The dataset also did not include demographic information on qualities like race and disability, which could have been interesting to examine in looking at disparities of wealth between populations. Also, many wealthy people have hidden wealth that may have not been represented in the dataset. My first question is, what percentage of billionaires are American, and how does this compare to the population of America and the percent of billionaires in a country like China that is more populated? I asked this question to examine global disparities of wealth in the year 2001. I looked at the percentage of overall billionaires who are American, the percentage of the world's population who are American, the percentage of overall billionaires who are Chinese, and the percentage of the world's population who are Chinese, and used a bar graph to compare them. The bar graph shows the four factors listed next to each other. It shows that although Americans represent only 4.6% of the world population in 2001, 50% of billionaires were American, and that in contrast, China represented 20.5% of the world population in 2001, but only 0.00186% of billionaires were Chinese, which is only one Chinese person. My second question was, what percent of American billionaires are male? How does this compare to the population of men in America? Which I asked because it could be used to examine gender inequality in American billionaires for the years 2001 and 2014. I used a bar graph to compare the percentage of the U.S. population that are male, which remained at 49% for both years 2001 and 2014, the percentage of American billionaires who were male in 2001, and the percentage in 2014. The visualization shows that despite being only 49% of the U.S. population, men represent a vast majority of American billionaires in both 2001 and 2014, but that percentage has slightly decreased over time, demonstrating that gender inequality is decreasing slowly. My third question was, what is the average wealth of American billionaires compared to the average and poorest Americans, which I can answer to look at the income disparities of Americans. I used a bar graph to compare the average wealth of American billionaires, the average wealth of all Americans, and the average wealth of the poorest quintile of Americans in 2001. My graph demonstrates the juxtaposition of the wealth of the billionaires to other Americans. It demonstrates that billionaires are so wealthy that comparably most Americans look like they have no money. In fact, while the average American billionaire has $3.37 billion, the average American has $73,900, which is $0.000000739 billion. The poorest quintile of Americans has negative $905, meaning 1/5 of Americans have an average net worth that is negative. They have less than no money. My last question is the average wealth of American billionaires increasing over time? After looking at all the disparities in wealth, I wanted to know if billionaires are getting richer. Using the years available, 1996, 2001, and 2014, I made a line graph to examine this. The line graph shows that their wealth has increased over the years available. There are many social implications to these answers. Some stakeholders could be sociologists, historians, and other scholars who might be interested in the information presented to analyze the power structures in society. The data demonstrates the disproportionate amount of money that certain individuals have and highlights how being from certain demographics increases your likelihood of wealth, which could definitely interest sociologists, historians, and other scholars as they analyze society. Social policymakers could be interested in this information for a number of reasons also. For example, seeing the wealth disparities might influence policymakers to tax the wealthy more and the poor less. Or perhaps world leaders might want to look at why Americans have such disproportionate amounts of wealth. The average American could be interested in this too. It could inspire the average American to fight for policy reform in America that evens out the playing fields. Some conflicts between the stakeholders could be between policymakers. For example, a politician like Bernie Sanders might see this information and be inspired to act change that allows the poorest quintile of Americans to not be in debt, while other Americans have more money than they'll ever be able to use. Whereas a politician like Donald Trump, for example, might want to protect billionaires' money because he is a billionaire. The average American could be in conflict with policymakers for similar reasons. For example, if they felt that politicians were not protecting them and were instead increasing disparities between the poor and wealthy, they may want to use grassroots efforts and do things like vote to try and change this. Sociologists, historians, and other scholars could be in conflict with policymakers for similar reasons too. For example, a sociologist who is interested in conflict theory might look at this and see the disparities as an example for conflict over resources and think that this is problematic and want policymakers to try to adjust this. World leaders could be in conflict, so world policymakers, because certain countries might be upset by America's disproportionate amount of wealth, and they might want to change this. Thank you! Woohoo!